I work in an office. I'm an administrator, so and also I'm doing. I want to be a model as well, so I'm doing that part time. My father passed away when I was 11, and my mother passed away when I was 15. So, but I still had my older sisters, so they looked after us, and it was quite hard actually growing up. So, yeah. I'd say I think about my parents more or less every day, especially when it's quiet. You know, at like night time when you're trying to sleep, and you know you're calming yourself down and thinking about what you've done in the day. And my parents, they do come in my mind a lot, and sometimes I do think, like, you know, are they watching over me and, you know, basically looking after me. And when my parents passed away, it's made me really think about life and death. And I know my parents basically lived for us because we had a really big family, you know, loads of children, and my mother was a housewife, so she took care of us. She didn't really travel much, so I just think, like, it's just made me more aware that I want to travel, and I just want to see the world a bit more before I die. And I do live life to the full, so I do live every day thinking it's a new day, and if something bad's happened the day before, I just forget about it, start all over again. You know, you wake up every day and you think, you know, what I'm going to do today, and you just don't think about dying. And you hear on the news all the time, though, you know, bad stuff, and you just don't think it's going to happen to you. So, like, when my parents passed away, I thought they were going to be here forever, you know, and it's just a split second, you know, 1 minute they're there, next minute they're not. So you just get on with life, and then you've got the memories to just think about, and, you know, all the good things that those people brought in your life. So yeah. It's scary thinking about it, and I know everyone's going to go one day. You're not going to be here, you know, forever. But I just think, like, if you die, there's another person being born, so obviously life goes on.
People from the forces tend to have different attitudes to death, depending on their role, really. I'm an aircraft technician. I've just come back from Afghanistan, where I was working on the flight line there. In my role, I wasn't necessarily facing death as a day in, day out part of my task, although there was the possibility of rocket fire, because we were in a theatre. However, the RAF regiment, the pilots that were flying, they face death potentially on a day-to-day basis, and the way they deal with it, they kind of don't think about it as much. If you think about it too much, it then becomes a big thing. I did have a moment where I sat there while I was in my room out in Afghanistan, and I was thinking, do I need to write a letter, a sealed letter, in the event of my death? You know, my last words to my wife. Don't know. I never did in the end. I know most regiments, when they go out, they all make sure they write a letter. And somebody back home keeps hold of those. So in the event of, they've all written their letters, and that must be very hard to do. I sat and thought about it for a long time, and thought, what would I say? Don't know. Thankfully, like I said, obviously, I've not needed it. But it did make me think about my life back home.
So in my job, essentially, I'm there to actually keep somebody alive when they've got major things going wrong. We're fighting for their lives, and that's our responsibility to be doing that. We'll be looking at the whole of the systems of what's going on with their life, whether it's heart, lungs, their blood pressure, and so forth. And our job is to just keep everything kind of going, really, and not give up. I'm a nurse in a critical care unit. I work on the intensive care unit and the high dependency unit. We have a total of 5 funded beds on the ITU and 8 beds on the high dependency unit. So therefore we get the sickest of the sick from the whole of the hospital. Yeah, we normally have a system if somebody is actually getting to a point where it looks like they're going to die. If it's something where the doctors feel that it's no longer appropriate to resuscitate them, then we have a strict protocol for what we call a DNAR, which is a do not resuscitate. And within that system, we have lots of things that we'll add into that, not just whether we resuscitate, but how far we're going to go with treatment. Once they've actually passed away, we then also have to follow a strict system as to check to make sure that they are actually officially passed away, because our patients are so sick that sometimes you can't deem them as dead until they fit a certain criteria. This one particular woman it was like as though she was just, I can't describe it, she was almost like haunted, and the fear I could never describe. Normally by the time a patient dies, you can normally see a sense of peace that comes over their face, and normally by the time we've kind of arranged them and tidied them up and taken the tubes out in a way to give them back to the family, this lady she was haunted. I remember sitting with her and she just was wrestled right the way through to her very last breath. And when she'd passed away and she was verified as being dead, and we'd arranged it and got the families to come in, the one thing that my colleagues and I couldn't get over was how distressed her face looked, which was the most awful thing for her relatives, because she didn't even look at peace. And generally, one of the biggest comforts, irrelevant of your background or your belief or anything, is the fact that a patient normally looks at peace and asleep. But for this lady, she didn't. She looked like something that I could only describe in a horror film. And I will never forget that woman.
Well, ultimately, what my job entails is myself and my family and the staff that work for me. It's about giving the bereaved families the utmost care that we can to help them through one of the most difficult times in their lives. I'd say, the role entails obviously when people first of all call us up to let us know that they've lost a loved one, and giving them the appropriate advice through to arranging the funeral, and also as well providing aftercare for people after the funeral has taken place. I was 3 years old and I was given a leather, and I was told, come on Ed, I need you to help us with this car. So I've been involved in it all my life, and I think one of the worst things that I've ever heard people say to people is, you'll get over it. You should be feeling this. Obviously bereavement is completely individual. Seeing death and bereavement and upset day in, day out, some people would think, well, how can you deal with such such a morbid job. I actually love what I do. I'm helping people, and it is very chilling. But if you let the chilling nature of that get to you, you can't help those families as effectively as you can. So you've got to come back to the positive on helping these people. I think it makes you realise how lucky you are. Obviously, you know, it makes you cherish life, and it makes you realise that your glass is half full, not half empty.